Hi, dear friends. Welcome back to our channel. Today I have another story for you. Speaking English is very easy. Please subscribe to my channel, like, share, and comment. Let's get started. My name's Liam, and I want to tell you a story about how I learned to speak English. I used to think that speaking English was impossible, but now I know it's actually not that hard at all. It was a journey that started with a little bit of fear, but it ended with a lot of pride. Let me take you through it. I was just a regular boy living in a small town. Everyone around me spoke the same language. I never thought about speaking anything else because everything I needed was right there. I didn't really care about learning a new language. Why would I? I already spoke what everyone else spoke. But all of that changed the day Miss Sarah came to our school. I remember the first time I saw her. She wasn't like any teacher I had ever seen before. She was bright and cheerful, and when she walked into our classroom, she smiled and said, "Hello, everyone." But the strange part was, I didn't understand what she was saying. She wasn't speaking our language. It felt weird, like something was off. The whole class just stared at her in confusion, and I felt my heart race. I had never heard English before. I didn't know what to think. I was afraid. Miss Sarah, though, wasn't going to let that stop her. She smiled even more and said, "Don't worry, we'll learn together." She pointed to herself and said, "I am Sarah." Then she pointed to each one of us and asked us to say our names. I didn't speak at first. I was too nervous. What if I said the wrong word? What if I looked silly? But then something surprising happened. The next day, Miss Sarah started simple. She held up a picture of a door and said, "This is a door." She pointed to the window and said, "This is a window." The words sounded strange, but they were easy enough to understand because she showed us pictures. Door, window, she repeated again and again. And then, Miss Sarah said, "Can you say door?" I didn't want to speak at first, but I thought to myself, what's the worst that could happen? So I said it quietly, "Door." To my surprise, Miss Sarah smiled. "Good job," she said. Then she asked us to repeat the words after her. I didn't think much of it at first, but after a while, I began to get used to the words. It didn't feel so scary anymore. One day, Miss Sarah told us a story. I remember it clearly. She gathered us all together and said, "I want to tell you a story about a brave knight." She began, "Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there was a knight who spoke the language of the people. This knight was able to help them, understand them, and share ideas with them because he spoke their language. The people trusted him, and that made him powerful." I listened carefully. I had never thought about language like that before. It made me think. If the knight could be so strong because he spoke the language of the people, maybe I could be stronger, too. Maybe I could connect with more people if I spoke their language. Maybe English could help me do that. That night, I decided to try something new. I stood in front of my mirror, just like Miss Sarah had taught us. "Door, window, ball," I said softly to myself. I felt a little silly, but I knew it was important to practice. So I kept repeating the words over and over again. Door, window, ball. The next day at school, Ms. Sarah asked us to pair up and practice speaking English with a partner. I was nervous. What if I made a mistake? But then I remembered the night from the story. I remembered how speaking the language made him powerful. I took a deep breath, and when it was my turn, I said to my friend Maria, "This is a book." Maria smiled and said, "This is a book." We both laughed. It felt good to speak in English, and I realized it wasn't so hard after all. Days passed, and Ms. Sarah kept teaching us. We learned more and more words, but more importantly, we learned how to use them. I wasn't afraid of English anymore. I started speaking it more and more, not just with my friends but with my teachers and even with my family. Every time I spoke, I felt a little more confident. Then, one day, something amazing happened. Miss Sarah asked me to stand in front of the whole school and tell a story in English. I was so nervous. My hands were shaking. What if I messed up? But I remembered the night. I remembered how he helped people because he spoke the language of the people. I knew that if I could speak English, I could connect with more people, just like the night did. So, I stood in front of everyone. The whole school was watching me. I cleared my throat, took a deep breath, and started my story. There was once a brave knight, I said, remembering Miss Sarah's story. This knight spoke the language of the people. Because he could speak their language, he understood them. He helped them when they needed it, and that made him powerful. I paused, looking at everyone's faces. They were all listening. I continued, and that's why speaking English is important. It's not just about knowing the words. It's about connecting with others. It's about helping people. When I finished, there was a moment of silence. And then, everyone clapped. I couldn't believe it. I had done it. I had spoken in front of the whole school in English. I was so proud of myself. Miss Sarah was smiling at me from the back of the room, and I could see the pride in her eyes, too. Now, I know that speaking English isn't hard at all. It's just about practicing and believing in yourself. It's about connecting with others, learning, and growing. English isn't something to be afraid of. It's something that can help you explore the world, just like the knight who spoke the language of the people. I learned that day that speaking English is easy when you have the courage to try. And now, every time I speak English, I feel like that brave knight, strong, connected, and ready for anything. So, if you're ever scared to speak English, remember me, and remember the night. It's not about being perfect. It's about trying and believing in yourself. And before you know it, you'll be speaking English like it's the easiest thing in the world. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this story and found it inspiring, please give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment on my channel for more stories and tips on learning English. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to continue this adventure together.